It's nearly 20 to 7 right now on Breakfast. The future of fishing isn't looking bright. That's according to the think tank, the New Zealand Initiative, which reckons recreational fishing, as you know it, might be in jeopardy. It's just released a new report this morning looking at fresh ways to manage our fish stocks. Some of the ideas include putting the brakes on your weekend catches. Report author Dr Randall Bess is with us now. Good morning.
Oh, good morning.
Just how dire are our fish stocks?
Well, when we look at how the fish stocks are relative to overseas, they're in actually pretty good shape, but we're starting to see signs of concern. We have some of the blue cod stocks, scallops stocks, and rock lobster stocks that are just not doing so well, and they're starting to look like what we would expect to see from overseas fishing nations. So it's starting to show those signs of concerns, and we really need to start paying more attention to where we're going for the long term.
You say that we're facing a catastrophic depletion of fish stocks if we don't rein in recreational fishing. And I found this interesting because I imagine that it's mainly commercial fishers that are the cause of this, but you say no, the recreational fishers are to blame too.
Well, we're all to blame is really the point that we're making. There's in place a system for managing commercial fisheries. They have quite secure rights. The rights for recreational fishers are not so secure, but yet what we're seeing is an increase in the demand for recreational fishing. So what's happening is that increase in demand for recreational fishing is bumping right up against the secure rights of commercial fishers that also have to do with the settlement of treaty claims for fisheries resources. So we're now experiencing what is really common in other countries, and that is conflicts between competing fishing sectors.
You've looked at some overseas models, and that is what this research is all about, to look at ways that we can better manage our fish stocks. What is working overseas?
Well, we've looked at 4 different locations, Northern California, Texas, British Columbia, and Western Australia. And what we found is that there's some places that are handling these increased pressures and challenges quite well, others are not. The one that's working the best, we think, and we're going to look into it even more so, is Western Australia. Western Australia has a smaller population than New Zealand, but yet per capita, people get out on the water to fish more frequently than New Zealanders. And what they have done is they've actually invested quite a lot of both human and financial resources to address those the competition between the sectors, those conflicts that are just arising and impeding good fisheries management. One of the examples of what they've done there is that they've provided a much better representation of recreational fishing interests and commercial interests. So what the government has done is they've actually paid one representative organization for each sector to actually be the sole contact for sector-level issues. And when they have that plus really strong governance arrangements in place, it changes the dynamics between the two sectors. So instead of kind of fighting and lobbying for their own interests, they actually have incentives to come up with workable solutions and go back to government with those.
Okay, so what sort of incentives specifically?
Well, they have different roles. They're paid actually to come up with consultation and planning for the long term and working out the problems. So basically government's saying, go off and come up with the solutions and then come back to us with those solutions. And it's working well in terms of one representative organization for recreational fishers representing all 740,000 recreational fishers.
I noticed one of the other areas that you looked at was the Gulf of Mexico. They've got a problem with their red snapper, and they have limited recreational fishers to a season of just 9 days a year. Is that, you know, it seems quite extreme, but do you think it could potentially get to that point in New Zealand that actually you go, you know what, we just don't have the fish anymore. You want to go out and catch a snapper, you've got 2 weeks of the year to go do it.
Well, of course, all of us want to avoid that scenario for New Zealand, but the history of fisheries management is that crises come along, and sometimes there's a significant downturn in fisheries and real fast. What's happened in the Gulf of Mexico is that there have been long-term initiatives to improve the stocks. The stocks have rebuilt quite considerably, but the issue has been that the recreational demand has increased faster than the stocks. So while the attention of the fisheries managers has been on working and improving the management for the commercial sector and the very large charter boat sector there, they've left the private boat anglers to the last for reform. And in the meantime, emergency measures have been put in place that have put the season down in federal waters to 9 days and 2 fish per day for those 9 days.
Dr. Randall Bess from the New Zealand Initiative, thanks so much for your time this morning. I do think that we need to look at a few areas.
Yeah.
Dr. Bess mentioned rock lobster, which most of us just call crayfish. So in New Zealand, you can take, Jack, 6 crayfish a day, as can I, as can Daniel. So we go out on a boat together.
Yeah.
We're taking 18 crayfish out of the sea. We can do that every day for our entire summer holiday.
Yeah, which
is that right?
Well, if you're diving, it's not going to be that easy to get that many.
Well,
you
got tanks on. They're just taking them up. They're taking them up. I do think that there are certain areas that we need to look at as well, just to make sure that that they stay there. Our motto is always only ever take what you can eat that day, no more.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's easy, I reckon.